Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, and I'm so excited for today's painting because it's one of my favorite subjects and it's also something I really struggled with painting when I was new to watercolor. So today we are going to be painting a big sky with some fluffy clouds. Now, skies are known to be one of the harder things to paint in watercolor because we're using the wet on wet technique and we want everything to look well blended, and so I hope to help you with today's tutorial. And if you're new here, my name is Emily Winslow and I'm an artist who loves to help others learn watercolor and grow in their art career. Let's go ahead and grab our paintbrushes and get started. Let's start by going over what materials we're using in today's painting. So as always, I'm using my Winsor & Newton watercolor kit. You can find this on my Amazon storefront in the link in the description, and actually you can find all these materials there. So for my paper, we're going to use the brand Strathmore. It's one of my favorites. And then of course we've got our water, a pencil, and I have 3 brushes. I've got a size 12, a size 6, and a size 1. So let's go ahead and just do a quick little sketch, and this one's not going to take very long. Like I said, we are going to be painting a big sky, and so I'm just going to mark out where I want a little bit of a border, and you don't have to include a border if you don't want to, or you can use some masking tape. I just like to have some messy edges, so that's why I'm kind of just marking where I want it generally, but we're probably going to go outside of the lines a little bit. And for our sky, we are going to have a majority of this paper being sky, but I also usually like to do a little bit of a tree line when I do this type of subject. So I'm just going to make some little squigglies at the bottom. You don't have to be too exact with this part. So I'm just marking out where I might want some trees, and I always like to add in maybe a little bit of branches in here to make it look a little bit more realistic. So go ahead and just add the top of trees wherever you'd like, or you don't have to add trees at all. You can just have the whole thing be a sky if you want. I always think it just looks so nice when you've got a little asymmetry to this, so that's why I'm kind of making some trees larger than others, and we're going to keep some really small over here. This kind of helps balance out the painting a little bit. Okay, so once we are happy with our sketch, we can move on to painting. And I'm going to start with my large brush here. So we are going to be using the wet on wet technique for basically the majority of this painting, because we want the clouds to be pretty soft. And before I wet my paper, I'm just going to go ahead and mix up the colors that I'm looking to have for the sky, just so that I don't feel too rushed while the paper is drying. This kind of helps me feel a little bit more relaxed when I've got the color ready to go. So we're just going to do a pretty light blue here, and I want to have kind of a variety ready. So I'm having a lighter blue, maybe a little bit of a darker blue here, and then I'm also going to mix up a little bit of a pinkish tone that I'm going to add in part of the cloud, and then maybe a little bit of a purplish tone that I want as well. Okay, so once we've got some colors just ready to go here, I'm going to rinse off my brush and we're gonna swipe it across the entire page here. So I'm just gonna start here at the top and work my way down. I used to find clouds just really challenging to paint. I actually still find them challenging, but they are one of my favorite things to paint because I think so beautiful, especially when painted with watercolor. You can just get a really nice blended effect when using the wet on wet technique. And this summer, I've just been noticing how beautiful and fluffy the clouds have been recently, and I've just been in the mood to paint them lately, so that's what we're doing. Let's go ahead and grab our blue color here, just mixing up a little bit more. And I'm going to just start laying that in wherever I want the blue sky to be. And now I'm going to leave some spots open to be white for the clouds. So we're just going to dot in some of the areas here. Now this is very sporadic the way we're painting, so your clouds are going to be placed different than mine. You can follow a bit if you want, but the water and paint is just going to mix differently for everybody. So I think that's just one of the really cool things about the sky, though, is like every minute it's changing, and it will never in our lifetime like ever be the exact same. And I just think that's so cool about nature. it's always different every day. Okay, so now you can kind of shape up the clouds a little bit if you need to, like kind of move and manipulate the paint a little bit. Now we have to work a little bit fast while the paint is wet. And so that's why I'm kind of just going at a faster pace here. And I want to now take in a little bit maybe of my pinkish tone and just kind of lay that here, dot that in at the bottom of some of the clouds. And you can just make it as smooth or dotted as you'd like. Totally up to you. I'm gonna now take in this purple tone as well and start laying that in. I always like to stick to like the bottom or like one side of the clouds to kind of show, you know, the shadows of the cloud. Now I'm just going to mix up a little bit more of this pinkish color and tap that in even more here in a few places of the cloud, just to add a little bit more color. You can make this as light or dark as you want. I always opt for kind of more pastel-like colors, and it's my style of painting. So if you like maybe more high pigment colors, you're welcome to just add more paint than not. I'm going to tap in a little bit more. Oh, make that one a little bit darker than I'd like, so I'm just going to kind of spread that around here. Usually I've noticed watercolors dry lighter. So like if you lay on more paint and it looks kind of dark when you first lay it on, it usually dries a little bit lighter than that. And that kind of reassures me sometimes, because I feel like I lay on a little bit too much more paint than I wanted and ends up usually being okay once it dries. And I'm just kind of moving around the paint a little bit more. We're always on like a pretty strict time limit when painting clouds, just because of the drying time. So I'd love to paint bigger pieces with clouds, but that's just so hard for me because of the way that you have to paint kind of fast. So trying to experiment with it a little bit more. Maybe you need to try, like, I don't know, doing section by section. Maybe that would help. But I always like the look when it's like all smooth and put together. So okay, we're going to give the sky a rest. We are going to come back to it because I want to add some little birds. So for now, let's go move on to our tree line here. And I'm going to start with kind of a bluish green here because I like to make the trees that are in the distance have this tone that's misty almost. So it's got that bluish hue in it. And I added a little bit of white. So kind of mix it up till you get it to a tone you like. And we're going to do that for a couple of these trees here, and I just am lightly placing these on. I don't want it to be maybe more earthy, so I'm going to add a little bit of brown in here too. So I'm just going to spread that around very lightly here. Now I'm leaving some spots open because we're going to go in with a more high pigmented green, or yellowish green maybe. So this is kind of for the trees that I want to appear further. And that's just a tip in general I have with watercolor, or I mean painting in general really, is if you want something to appear further in the back, when it comes to nature at least, I always recommend making it have like maybe a blue hue to it, or make it lighter, because if you observe in real life, you know, I always do this when I'm driving. I observe the trees around, and they're always just a lot lighter the further you look back. And so that's what I'm trying to imitate here, is just some lighter trees. Now I'm just going to add a little bit of a darkness to the bottom of these. So just tapping that in here. This also just adds some more depth to it. So now that we've kind of got this initial base here, let's go ahead and grab some of a different type of green. So let's go ahead and mix up the green, maybe with some yellows, even red here. Just trying to make it a bit of a warmer green. Again, I think I don't know if I said this earlier in the video or another video, but I don't really look at names of colors, I kind of just grab them until I like what I'm seeing on the palette. And so if you're somebody who learns better by knowing the names, I do apologize. I feel like I paint better when I just grab what I need. And so if you do look on Amazon at this watercolor kit I'm using, they do have the names listed on there. So that kind of, if you need to take a look at that, you are welcome to do so. Okay, so now we're just going to lay in this green all over the tree. And I'm just, making a dotted motion here. Now, I don't want the tree to look too perfect, so I am making sure the edges of it are a little bit messy, a little uneven, because that's how trees are in real life. And now it's okay if we start overlapping into the other green area that we've already painted. We want it to blend together a little bit, so just going to go all over this area. Actually going to grab my more medium brush here and grab these colors again. I want to make sure I'm keeping them earthy. So I always mix in some like brown in there to tone them down, because the pigment's straight from most watercolors, not just this one. They're usually pretty stark. Like the green is very like almost cartoony green. And so I always like to just add in some yellows or brown to tone it down a bit. But again, that is just my personal preference. So if you prefer different tones, you're welcome to apply that to this painting in your own style. I'm always looking for different tutorial ideas, so if there's something you want to learn how to paint, go ahead and let me know in the comments below. I'd be happy to make a tutorial. I'm always just looking to even just practice. I use these tutorials I do for YouTube just as much to help you learn, but also to help me practice as well. And oftentimes I actually bring these creations that I make on YouTube to my art fairs. So I'm really excited about the art fairs I have the rest of this year. I'm going to one in Indianapolis. It's called the Penrod Art Fair. And I did that one last year. It was one of my favorites, so very excited about that. And then I did apply to some other ones, but I'm not going to hear back if I got into them for a couple other days or weeks, so we shall see. I'm just going to grab some more dark greens, maybe even some black in here. I just want to start adding some shadowing in the trees, so that's going to look like this. We're just going to add that to the bottom of sections in the tree. Help it have a little bit more depth here. I'm going to add some more brown in here as well. Just really adding that here to the bottom. When we're done with the tree line, I'm going to go in with my thin little brush. It's always like the last step to most of my watercolor paintings, is just to add in a little bit more detail. Let me know in the comments below, what is your favorite subject to paint? I just find a lot of joy in doing basically any naturescape, but especially skies, and trees are another one of my favorite things to paint. So I think I might do a watercolor. I've done a watercolor tree tutorial on like a bunch of different kinds of trees, so you can go check that one out. But I think I might do another landscape tutorial on just like focusing on one tree. Okay, now I'm going to take just a plain like brown, maybe blackish brown, because I'm going to put a little bit of a branch and trunk. It's going to be a little bit hard to notice since most of the tree is filled in. I'm going to add that a little bit right here where there's some white space. And if you didn't leave white space, that is totally fine. You just maybe add that over, but I wouldn't go up and down the whole way. I always like to, when I paint trees, I like to make sure there's some of the branches hidden by leaves, because in reality you're not going to see the entire branch on a tree. You're going to see part of it, and other parts are going to be hidden by leaves. That's what I'm kind of doing here. Maybe make a few go kind of out of the leaves here, just to make it look maybe a little bit more realistic. Okay, so now that most of our tree line is done and our sky is done, I am going to just take a little bit of a dark color, so maybe this dark blue right here. And I'm just gonna paint some little birds in the sky. And so let's start light here. And we can go in with a darker color. I didn't want to do stark black because I kind of want to make some look like they're further, some look like they're in the distance. So let's just do simple little bird shape here. And you know how when you're kids, I don't know about you, but I was kind of like made that little like V shape for our birds. And that's actually kind of what we're doing here. Doesn't need to be too complicated. There's just like little things that I sketched as a kid, and I'm like, well, actually kind of still use that in today as a painter. Now let's get even a little lighter. So I washed off my brush a little bit, and I'm gonna make some even tinier that you can barely see on this page, just like it's going off into the distance here. Maybe some really close together. Always kind of reminds me of like migration time, like towards the end of summer when birds are starting to go back down south. Might do one more here, right off into the distance up here. And I wanted to even out the composition a little bit. And with that little one, I think we are just about done here. So here is our completed sky painting. I hope you all enjoyed this tutorial and join me for my next video. That painting was really fun for me to do, so I hope you all walk away with a beautiful sky painting, and I'd love if you share it on social media and tag me in it. So you can find me at Emily Winslow Art, and I'm on all platforms. And let me know in the comments below what else you want to learn how to paint. I'm always looking for new suggestions. So if you haven't already, go ahead and hit the subscribe button because I have more tutorials coming out very soon. Until we paint again next time.